Welcome to episode 157 of the Necronama.com. The Necronama.com is proud to announce that we've partnered with the Horror Writers Association and the Stanley Hotel and Gemma Amore and Laurel Hightower to bring you the official StokerCon pre-party. We want you to join us on May 10th, 2022 at the iconic Stanley Hotel, where horror authors including Stephen Graham Jones, Gabino Iglesias, Haley Piper, Gemma Amore, and Laurel Hightower will be reading some of their works. Additionally, the No Sleep podcast will perform a 1-hour live version of their award-winning horror fiction podcast. There will be meet and greets, ghost hunting, and a lot of drinking with authors. You're not going to want to miss it. A link to ticket information and room packages is available in the liner notes of this episode. The Necronama.com is now a proud affiliate of Libsyn, one of the top podcast hosting networks in existence. See this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 free months of podcasting services with Libsyn. Get your show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Get critical audience-building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. They even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard here, there, everywhere with Libsyn. Check our show notes for the unique promo code and get podcasting. Now in their 18th year, Fright Rags has been bringing you the best in horror apparel and accessories since 2003. Offering a wide range of products for your favorite creature features, slasher flicks, and cult classics. Officially licensed collections include titles like John Carpenter's The Thing, The Evil Dead, Creepshow, Jaws, the Halloween franchise, and so many more. Head on over to fright-rags.com. Make sure to sign up for their SMS and email newsletter to never miss a drop. Listeners get 10% off when they use the code NECRO10, all caps, at checkout. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And if you stay tuned to the very end of this episode, I will tell you about the worst baked ziti ever.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of the podcast that you're listening to. And, I got a pair of grippy socks, but for different reasons.
I don't want to know the reasons. And that's why I'm going to skip straight ahead to our guest today. David Sims is here. David, thank you for joining the show, man.
Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here, and I don't have a joke on tap, but I am in the educational system, so if that's not the biggest joke in the world right now, I don't know what is. So,
Oh, man. So, yeah, why don't you tell our listeners a bit about yourself and your books? And I happen to know that one of these books heavily ties in with today's film, so tell us all about that, man.
Sure. Right now, I live in Stanton, Virginia, which is right across the street from probably the most notorious lunatic asylum in America. And, but however, I did escape an even bigger asylum 11 years ago when I moved from New Jersey. So I got the hell out of there, came down here, have 2 novels out so far. One young adult music weird thing, and then Fear of the Reaper, which came out, and that was heavily inspired by the film we're talking about tonight, and sent me down a rabbit hole of historical thriller horror things that I never thought I'd get into. And this summer I'll be trying to sell couple novels and my soul to get these things published. Another kids thing and a book about a married a serial killer couple. So I mean, so that sounds pretty morally set and ethical. So I'm set with that.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, I figured why not?
Sounds great.
I figured, hey, if Dexter screwed up when he's single, it's like what could happen if he was actually married? So let's just go there and let the wheels come off. So I figured, why not? It's like, I have no ethics. So.
You brought up the educational system and the asylum across the street from you there, and I can't help but notice how much asylum buildings, psych hospitals, whatever you want to call them, the old sanitariums, like how much they look like the same buildings that we go to college or high school in a lot of times. So the architecture has a lot in common, and I find that very interesting.
That it's funny you mention that. When we moved down to Stanton in 2011, we came down here and I passed right by Western State Lunatic Asylum, and I said, "That's a gorgeous college campus." I said, "Who goes to?" And I saw it. It's like, holy crap! I need to, and then I found out about it. I need to write about it. But yeah, it looks exactly like a classic college campus. It's sick.
They absolutely do.
I think there's a reason for that. I don't know what it is, but I think there's a reason. So.
Man. So what is it about Session 9 itself? Like, I know you teach this in class, right? And
yes, I do.
What is it about this film that means so much to you?
Oh my God. Well, see, I mean, right now I'm actually teaching a criminal psychology class online, and I found myself, feeling dirty afterwards because I'm reading about all these horrific psychology things and serial killers and weird people. So when I was teaching up in Massachusetts, another state that was really good to get out of, I taught about 15 minutes from Danvers State Hospital, which is the setting for this movie. And I used to drive by it, and it's like, oh my God, this is. There needs to be something about this film that's turned into a book. And I put it in the back of my mind and said, and I forgot about it, but figured eventually when I came down here, I brought out the Danvers State Hospital T-shirt. It's like, you know what? It's time. It's time to do something about this. But this film has always stayed within me. Every time I watched it and every time I showed it to a college class, it's just something where it creeps me out every single time. And it takes a lot to disturb us. I mean, no, we're already disturbed plenty as we are, but it's something about this and the whole, is it supernatural or is it not? That just kind of slowly creeps under your skin like a psychotic X. So I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. Very nice. Don, had you seen Session 9 before this?
I had not. I think you had mentioned it a while ago, and it was one of those things when I went to watch it, it was already on my to watch list on Shudder. And, it was one of those things where I'm like, all right, now I get the opportunity to actually go and watch it. And, I saw a couple of familiar actors in it. And I'm like, all right, let's see what's going to happen with this one. Who's going to make it? Who's not going to make it? Where's the twist? Because I think the cool thing about this movie, not to get into the movie, but the cool thing about this movie is, mental hospitals, sanatoriums, they're just creepy. Because of all the stories that we've kind of built up about them, all the legends, and just the premise. Yeah, even if this were just a regular movie where these guys are all, hey, we're going to go clean out the asbestos in this place, you already get an uneasy feeling because you can understand all the traumatic stuff that probably took place here, even when they go through that first tour. But within the first few minutes, I'm like, all right, well, what the hell is going to happen? Because me, I don't do spoilers. I want to see what's going to take place.
So for me, like, I worked in 3 different state hospitals, and I worked overnights. So we were always bored. Well, we were almost always bored. And the nights that we weren't bored, we were very busy. But the nights that we were bored, we would go explore, and we'd go check out the old tunnels, or if there was a certain room that supposedly had a lot of activity, we'd go check it out, And I gotta say, when you say, like, you can start thinking about the stuff that happened there, I'm not a good enough writer or a good enough describer, but the energy in these places is just off the charts. Like, there is weird feelings everywhere. And part of it's the environment and, like, what you bring to it. But man, there's something. I'm a big believer in energy staying in a place because of those places.
Absolutely.
Do you have that same kind of feeling, David, with the one that you?
That was one thing I did not write down before, but Yeah, at the sister asylum in Stanton here, it's called the Degenerette Sanatorium, which it was given to the eugenicist for being such a good eugenicist, because I guess you need accolades for killing people. We did a ghost tour. I co-run the ghost tour in Stanton, and for the last 8 years, we did that for 4 years here at the sanitarium. And you want to talk weird energy? I mean, I don't have to explain it to you, but every single time we were there, people come up to me and say, "I felt something," or I heard something, that something else was there. And when we walk around the grounds, it's electric. And I've studied just the science of hauntings and other things, and just residual energy things at various buildings, and it's a real thing. And I don't think it's so much of a paranormal thing, although it could be, but it's just a real thing that's left over, because you have that traumatic energy of what happened in places like that just linger forever. And I think that's why so many people are drawn to these places. I cannot imagine working in one, and you worked in 3 and you survived. So
yeah, I wouldn't say I worked overly long in any of them, maybe a couple years each, but yeah. But you talk about that, how it might not be paranormal. And I'm a big believer in that. It's almost like the energy has etched itself on reality. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't have any other way to put it, but it's like things were so extreme that it left an echo of that feeling. And I read about like people going to Auschwitz or places like that, and that same sort of feeling, like the trauma just etched itself on reality. And that's pretty much the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, that you mentioned that, I had that same feeling. We had the Jewish Community Center in Chandler, probably like 10 years ago. They were able to get their hands on one of the train cars that was used to take people to death camps. And it was I think it was one from Macedonia. And I cannot put into words how uncomfortable it was to be in there. I mean, because the feeling, one, knowing what was there, but I think even if I hadn't known myself, I brought students who had a basic understanding of World War II and the Holocaust, and they were nauseous being inside of it, because there wasn't a sign, there weren't pictures on the inside, but when you could see where people were scraping at the walls of this wooden boxcar to get out, that was, again, that's something that you can't really understand unless you step into the boxcar to see, or at least feel the energy that those people left behind. And then further on beyond that, you get that nausea, you get that discomfort, and knowing that there were human beings willing to do things like that to other human beings. The same thing with a lot of these mental hospitals, where we're going to experiment, we're going to test you, we're going to, test out whatever eugenicist theories that we have on vulnerable people.
Yeah, my ghost tour, I call it a psychic tattoo that's left over and just be etched into the buildings, like you're saying. And I learned that from the University of Virginia. They have their own parapsychology department, which I think is friggin' nuts. And they said the same thing. They said, you don't have to believe in ghosts, but you have to believe in this stuff. And I definitely agree there.
I always come back to the theory that energy can be neither created nor destroyed, so it's got to go somewhere. Exactly. And so I think that's as close as I can get to a scientific answer as to what that feeling is. But man, no matter how anyone describes it, when you feel it, holy shit, it's so weird. But yeah. So go ahead.
No, I mean, that's exactly it. Because again, we do our ghost tours and we kick them off next week here. And I say the exact same line. It sounded like you were echoing my thoughts here. Yeah, I tell people, I said, you know what? The energy can't be created or destroyed, only altered. And it's been proven in several scientific studies that when you pass away, you don't have to believe in ghosts or anything, but that energy lingers, whether it's a positive or negative, or whether it goes on or dissipates or whatever, it hangs. And you get a traumatic place like a death camp, because I've been to Dachau and it was like that. Or you go to one of these mental hospitals where thousands of people were killed. And and you get those echoes or those tattoos. I mean, it it's a real, and it can be louder than a Metallica concert. I mean, going in there, just listening to all the leftover, feeling what's left over there. So yeah, you just echoed exactly what was in my head. Sadly.
Sweet. I'm excited to have somebody else who understands what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, same here.
Man. Anyway, yeah, let's jump into the film itself, and I'm sure we'll keep weaving in and out of these same kinds of things, and we'll probably get to crazy things we've felt or witnessed in these places, but like, kick us off, man. It's a film you love, so tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I actually have the movie poster in my little library down here. I'm looking at it right now, and the thing that's always got me first is the opening scene when they walk into the Salem and they see the little wheelchair at the end of the hallway, and as soon as they look at it and you hear "Hello, Gordon," and he just looks at him and it's like, all right, that just sets the whole mood for everything, and you get a feeling just by looking at the main character that he's broken. He's a broken character. His mind and his psyche is fractured, and then the moment he looks down that hallway, and you know exactly what you're looking at. You don't know what that chair means, but it just sets everything, and you instills that immediate sense of dread right then and there, and you want to find out what's happening next. And I've never seen a better movie opening that's so subtle but powerful.
Well, and it hits so many things. Like, when we get to the end of the film, it changes this opening scene, and just what it's already telling us, but also the masterful way that it suggests everything is supernatural when maybe it is, maybe it's not, but one of the things I really love about this film is that these aren't props.
No, they're real. Yeah.
Like most of the so-called sets were already the way they appear on film. They weren't bringing stuff in and dressing it up, and they weren't like at most the room where is it Mike? Is that the guy that listens to the?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the room that Mike's in when he listens, I guess that's the one that they went around and they found some stuff and brought it into that room. But otherwise, things are pretty much where they are. So that's one thing I really just wanted to point out about how great this is, because filming it on this location and having all this real stuff, at least for me, having seen things like this, it just magnifies how the whole feeling of this film for me.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. Because I mean, again, I walk through the setting of my novel Fear the Reaper at least once a month, just because it's a cool campus to walk through, just so you get that sense of walking through history. And it's a nice walk as well, if you're twisted. So, but again, when I walk into these buildings that are still, I mean, because again, the parts of the campus that are not a luxury hotel and apartments and condos you can spend $1 million to live in on the grounds of the lunatic asylum. I mean, the older buildings are still there. You could walk into them with a little kick in the doors, and you can walk through the one place that is very, very well likely a gas chamber. You can stand inside there as well, and just to see that, that nothing's been brought on there. So when I walked through Danvers, the only time I ever walked on site there, that's exactly the real thing, and that's what impressed me most about the film is they needed nothing. They just brought the characters and the cameras, and they just pressed record and let it rip. And so it's all the characters. I mean, it's no special effects, nothing. It's pure dread.
And Don, you've heard me complain a lot about how my attention span does not get along with dread and atmosphere. Please see any of our A24 episodes. But this is an example of what I mean of when I say you can have dread and you can have atmosphere and you can have environment, and you don't have to bore the hell out of me doing it.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they do a great job of it, because there are even moments where I think it was Jeff's character where he early on you get that sense of okay, something bad is going to happen to him. One, because he's an annoying character. That's typically the way it always is, right? He's just an annoying guy, and we've all worked those jobs where that guy who's brought in because of who he knows and he has no idea what he's doing. So now I've not only got to do my job, but I've got to teach you how to do your job. So my job is easier to do. So I'm not having to deal with, cleaning up all your shit. But when that fuse goes out, or when the power goes out on the floor scraper, and I think Mike is like, oh well, you need to go downstairs and check the fuse box, check the fuse panel. And he's like, no, and he knows the exact. I mean, he states the exact phobia he has, and he's like, and he has to explain. He's like, I'm afraid of the dark. I can't be down there, and initially, you kind of think like, oh, God, he's an annoying guy. He's trying to get out of going down there. Really, nobody's going to say, as an adult, you're not going to say, hey, I'm scared of the dark. But I thought it was great to include because when that scene comes up later, you're like, oh, shit, he's afraid of the dark. Oh, my God, this is about to be bad.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't remember where I saw it, but someone had stated that the fear of the dark is not necessarily fear of being by yourself in the dark. It's fear of not being by yourself in the dark.
Yep.
And when I first read that changed my entire perspective about it, because that is so true about, being in the darkness. It's like, you're not afraid of being alone. You're afraid of something being there with you and not knowing what it is, which is why you can be in the same environment out in the daytime, as far as like your neighborhood. You can be out in the daytime, there's no issues. But if it's dark, all of a sudden that completely changed your entire perspective, because there are things that you can't see. You don't know what's out there or who's out there, and you don't know what danger may present itself. Whereas in the daytime, you kind of look at it as like it's not a threat. And if there is something that's threatening, it's far enough away for me to see it to where I can move, go inside, get out of the way, whatever it is. Whereas in the dark, he's in that long hallway, and it's not as though he can run away, because he's not going to be able to see where he's going. Whereas if everything's lit up, yeah, he can definitely get away.
Yeah,
but
you hit the nail on the head there, because again, one of my favorite things to teach in my psych classes is phobias, because everybody has one. And and that they're irrational. They're unfounded for the most part. But when he says, I have nyctophobia, and Mike looks at him and said, what the hell? And then it's like, yeah. And then something's going to come at that. But by looking at his face, he's not afraid to say it. It's real to him. So when the generators go out and he's just running and they see those lights flicker out one by one by one.
That was a great shot.
It is awesome. But it brings back, because again, that one of those opening scenes, what I love about this film is, you mentioned, the one guy is an ass, but they're all asses. They're all jerks. But I love that though, because it's like you don't know who to root for or to root for anybody. I mean, and one thing I apologize for my psychology degrees coming out here, but it's almost like you have different parts of Gordon's brain coming out. Like you have Phil, who's kind of like the rational part. You have Mike, the lawyer guy, who's like kind of the intelligent, like he's kind of the lost dreams, and you have Hank, who's just an asshole, and then the Jeff guy. I mean, he's like your id just going nuts. So it's almost like one brain just fractured into several parts. And
I love that.
Well, yeah. This is what happens when you teach them too many psychology classes. It just comes out. But yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to analyze the crap out of things. But it just, I was thinking about it when I was, I never wrote down the characters' names before. When I wrote them down, I said, wait a minute, this is like a fractured mind. And it's almost like a schizophrenic thing here and I think, wait a minute, what if, and I don't want to go down another rabbit hole. It's like, but if you really want to go bonkers here, you could say, wait a minute, what if it was all just Gordon just split up? I mean, and that's not it. But I mean, if you wanted to go symbolic here, I mean, that's just really cool. And I mean, I had fun with that, but
I actually really like that idea. I think that'd be another interesting way to go about this. And then you'd have the, the tapes. So you have dissociative identity disorder going on there.
Exactly.
And then, I think that's a great tie-in, man. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not what they meant. I mean, it was
No,
just like it
I
was
don't
just my
disagree.
intention. But I mean, it's cool though because and when I was looking at it, they said everybody has their motivation for what they want out of that. They will all want different things out of it, and they're all pretty dark and disturbed. And the one line that got me, and I forgot about this for a long time, is everybody has an exit plan to get out of there, just to because again, you work in these asylums, and it's so detrimental and so disturbing and to you and it's like if and everybody said if you spend too much time down there it'll ruin you and again from you James, you working in those places, you know how much it can ruin you. They said everybody had an exit plan except Gordon, so of course he's the most screwed up one. So I don't know what you thought about working in those places and just having it destroy you psychologically.
So I actually really want to talk about that. I don't know if I've ever, we talked a little bit about my jobs there when we did our Gothica episode, but I don't know if I explained this part. So at two of the state hospitals I worked at, I worked on the extreme lockdown unit. So like murderers and people actively trying to kill you occasionally during your shift. And the bigger psychological, I guess, debt or cost, whatever you want to call it. I got to a point in my daily life that if like one of my friends touched my shoulder, I was ready to drop him. Like it was just instinct. Like you touch me, you get dropped, right? Like, cause at work, it matters. At work, you could die if you don't react that way. And it's really made me think a lot about like, I don't know, police or, different things like that. And just how your constant interactions at work affect your daily life and the road that takes you down. And so when I say I didn't stay at these places long, like I was at each for about 2 years, but I look at people that were there like 26 years, and I'm just like, what are you like in daily life because of that? And I don't know. That's always fascinating to me. But I really wanted to point out the whole. It does take a toll, like whether it's that kind of toll or if it's you kind of lose empathy sometimes. You kind of think you've seen everything or different stuff like that. I didn't get to those points, but I'm saying the people that have been there longer kind of did. And all of that is a toll on your humanity and how you interact with others and what you're willing to give of yourself in life. And yeah, I don't know. So I guess it's a very long answer, but I still question like how it changed me and like how I interact with people daily based on those interactions in both positive and negative ways.
Right.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true there. I mean, again, I was actually offered a job at the children's version of this asylum that I set Fear the Reaper in, and I actually interviewed. I accepted the job, and then for some reason, I just said no at all three of them because I spent almost 10 years working at a psychiatric school for kids who were tossed out of other places, coming in and out of asylums. And I was the behaviorist there, so I was the one carrying these kids down the hallway, restraining them.
Yeah,
I had guns and knives and other objects like tossed it in my face, and again, like you, James, I had my life almost taken a few times, left in bruises several times, and it's tell you want to go home and drink, smoke, snort, anything you want to, and we had the wildest parties. We went on trips together just to purge ourselves of all the mental crap that just built up in us. So so if you can work in those places, I can imagine what's like. I mean, just spending days and days and days in those places and so that's why this film really got under my skin because it just. I mean, we've lived this in a way, and just to have it, and we know what it's like to have our psyche almost being broken ourselves.
Well, and I'm going to use a pop culture reference. Don will be amazed. I know. No. In one of my favorite Batman comics, The Killing Joke, it's all about you're one bad day from being me. Like Joker's saying one bad day, Batman, and you're me.
Mm-hmm.
And he just keeps trying to push Batman to that point, right? And I've always thought about that, but in different ways. Like I think about it with like homelessness. Like I'm a couple bad days away from that, right? Or like anybody in the mental hospitals that I worked with, like that could easily be me. When I worked at drug rehabs, that could definitely easily be me with one bad day. And that's always stuck with me. And so I guess I just the place I was going with this really was I kind of wonder how many of us got there and we just happened to fill out the application on the other side of the counter.
That's a great explanation. I mean, that's a great explanation of that. I like that. Yeah, and I like to think that all of us, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I think we all have the other side of the application, other side of the counter in us. To the people, again, I've worked in special education for many years, and I love it. I still do in some ways. But again, I think that the people who can't handle jobs in psychiatrics or special education or or the counseling I do now, you have to be off a little bit to survive that, because otherwise, if you're quote unquote normal, which is that scares me right there. I don't. I mean, that doesn't. I mean, I actually have that lanyard on my board saying normal people scare me.
Yes.
So it just. Again, I think you have to be a little off yourself to survive in that, and I own that. So.
I always say normal is a setting on a washing machine. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. But
what about you, Don? You're pretty normal. No. My real question was like it's not just psych hospitals. It's not just any of this. Like you probably see it in teaching or in anything else too, right, man?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I have a reputation which I totally own. As they call me the weird teacher, and I was like, thank you so much, because if I was ever the normal teacher, I'd be like, get me the hell out of here. And I mean, again, I actually have a couch in my room, about 8 foot long plush couch, where the reason why it's like they said, okay, you teach psych, there's a reason why you're going to be teaching. It's because people are going to come and dump all their crap to you. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I mean, because people come in and tell me the most horrible things, both students and teachers daily. And tell you, honestly, it's a hell of a lot easier to do that than it is to unload my own stuff. But again, the stuff I hear on a daily basis, if I told this to people in normal jobs, they'd freak out and go drink. It's amazing what I hear. So it's not dissimilar to what you would hear in a psychiatric institution. So it's just it's just in a school setting.
Is that your experience as well, Don?
Not to that extent, but yeah, I there have been times when I've had students who've come to me, and I'm glad that they did, because it means that, one, they trusted me enough to come and talk to me about whatever their issues were or their needs were. But I honestly wish that kids had a lot more outlets than they did, because I may have been the only person for them. And what happens if I'm not there, or a similar teacher that has that type of connection is not there, or has the time for them?
Well, first of all, Don, I just want to say thank you for doing that, because as you said, we don't have many people out there who would actually do that. So for anybody who does that, thank you.
Yeah, and that's honestly like the one regret I have about leaving public education and go for higher ed, is being able to mentor student, especially now. Like now, I would get fired. I would easily get fired just for what I have to say about the government, the legislature, the governor or legislature, or anything like that, because I'll be damned if I'm not going to protect gay kids and trans kids and marginalized kids in order to make, I guess, non-marginalized kids or non-marginalized, the parents of non-marginalized kids, comfortable and whatever other bullshit that they want to believe in. Like, I have a standing offer to any kids that are out there. If your family doesn't want you, like, feel free to contact, or your family doesn't want to talk to you or about anything. Like, we're on Twitter, so feel free to reach out, because I know what it's like to be in that situation where you don't have anybody to talk to, and you find that right person. So I always made it a goal to be that person that somebody could reach out to if they needed to. Now, money is a different situation, so don't hit me up for money. Hit me up for advice.
Advice is cheap. I can afford advice. Yeah.
Definitely don't hit me up for money. Jeez.
Exactly. I tell them, I said, there's a reason why I have 4 to 5 jobs. It's because I'm a teacher. Yeah. But I can afford advice all day long. Yeah, but again, but it's funny how my room is like kind of, it's, they call themselves the misfits, and it's again all the people who generally don't have who aren't the popular kids, who aren't everything else. And what you said, you pretty much described my room every day. And now that I'm in a lot of secondary college type situations, I'm finding the same thing there. So I wonder if I just attract people who need help. So I know I attract females who need help. So I mean, I didn't know it bled over to students. So I figure I probably dated. I always say I probably dated every psychotic woman in New Jersey. It's a good thing I'm not doing it anymore.
Oh man, we all have our track records, huh, Don?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Of course not.
Since we're talking about people talking to each other about their problems, one of the scenes that I love most in this film is when Gordon opens up to Phil, and he's like, "Hey, man, like I hit my wife."
Yes.
And he's like, he needs to tell someone, right? And what I like about this, number one, I like that Phil does seem to be one of the best choices to open up to out of this crew. Maybe Mike. I'd probably go to Mike, but outside of that, Phil seems like the right choice. I like how Phil tries to help, and I think that this is very real. This is very much what happens. People try to help, and then immediately go, fuck that. There's nothing I can do.
Right.
And that's kind of what Phil does. And then later he actually uses it to get himself ahead. And that is, I don't see that a lot in films this well done, just everything about it makes sense. Like every point of view with it makes sense. I really, really like this. And I like how, obviously we're going to talk about the ending anyway. So we don't know that he's killed his wife and daughter. So this opening up isn't even the real thing.
Right.
And yet it's powerful. Like it's such a real, dude, I hit my wife. What the hell am I doing? Like, I don't know what to do now. And just, and then obviously, like that seems like, unless I'm reading this wrong, but it seems like that's where his brain is with accepting it. Like he's built this other reality, so to speak. And, but everything about this works so well for me. And it's just a super powerful scene that I don't expect to find in a movie like this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you hit it perfectly there. Because again, he just comes out and it's almost like when you're going to therapy for the first time, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to give the therapist a little tiny sliver of what's going on with me. Okay, I didn't really kill 15 million people. I just killed one. But he just goes in there and says, I hit my wife. And again, just that one line there, and it's like, okay, well, he's not going to let loose with everything he did, but just kind of just gives Phil that sliver. And then it's like, okay, well, wow. And he's broken. And it's like, there's more to it. But, and to jump on what you were saying there, and he keeps on picking up that phone and talking to his wife on there, asking for forgiveness to everything else like that. And that it's kind of like the part B of what you're saying, because he's almost like he's asking his wife, who he killed, for forgiveness for doing this, but you don't know why. You don't know whether everything just set him over the edge, the financial issues, the other thing else. But then what got me is when he's talking in the graveyard and he's talking on the broken phone, and you look down and you see it's 444, the gravesite, and you find out that's Mary's room number. And it's like, and then when he puts the phone down, you see it's broken. It's like, oh my God, that's that. It's like now it's all coming together.
It's so good.
Yeah, those two scenes, what you said, and then when I said those two things put together are so powerful, but they're so understated. That's what I like about it. They don't smack you over the head with anything in this until the very end of it. So.
Well, and horror for me is a lot like a good illusionist. Like, I know I'm trying to be tricked when I sit down, right? You're not pulling out a trick and I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? Like, I came here for this. And I feel like a lot of horror doesn't play fairly. Mm-hmm. And that's always a huge thing for me. I want to go back and watch it again and go, holy shit, this all lined up. It was all there. You don't get to see it correctly until the end. And that's what I love. And this movie hits that so beautifully because while it's sort of cheating to do the whole calling the wife and stuff, it all makes perfect sense. It all absolutely works and it's completely fair. And I love that.
Yeah. Again, and I've worked with, some people who are when they've had that detachment from reality there, and they'll still pretend. I mean, how many of us still will email somebody who's passed away or call somebody that's no longer with us, and they pretend because it's a coping mechanism. And some of our coping mechanisms are so not normal, not psychologically well, but we do it because that's the only way we can handle it. So Gordon doing that stuff, it is cheating way, but I think it by working with these people and having friends who are like this, it does fit. And I think that's what's devastating to me each time, because I've been through this. I've seen people like this, and haven't killed anybody yet, but I mean, it's fascinating to watch. But again, when we watched it, when you rewatch it and you see how all the pieces align, it's really cool. All the puzzle pieces fit, even if they're kind of jagged.
Absolutely. When even driving by the house and like we do the same thing with memories in movies all the time, right? Like you drive by an old house and you see something that happened 20 years ago. We do this all the time. And so I like how the misdirection works great. It looks like this is about hitting your wife, and yet everything adds up at the end. I adore it. Yeah,
it definitely. And how they try to point it to Phil several times that he might be the one who's behind some of it, and going through everybody else, and then with Hank disappearing and showing up in the hallway, just saying, "Why are you here?" And then everything else, everybody gets a little turn at being sort of the villain here. I mean, except for the little mullet guy. I mean, he's too dumb to do that. But he doesn't have the mental facilities to do that.
That's what makes me suspect him.
Exactly, because mental faculties to do that. Yeah, because he just too damn dumb. I work with a lot. Hey, I teach in Virginia. I see the mullets all the time. Yeah. But I love that, though, how it's, the throwback to different parts of the mind that come at different times. You want to be rational, let's talk to Phil. You want to be cerebral, you talk to Mike, and you do it. You want to be crazy, you talk to Hank and everything else like that. And the nice family guy who's trying to be all put together is the one who's the most screwed up. And, I just love that. So.
Well, and Hank's the physical, hedonistic, that whole aspect, everything with him is as banging your old girlfriend, like everything. He's always partying. He's always, he just has that whole demeanor of being like a frat boy that never got over it.
Yeah. He is the living id. He's id personified.
Absolutely.
And I always wonder if he actually did survive the ending or not. I mean, they show him, could he have survived that lobotomy or not? And if he did, I mean, would he be able to run for office? So,
There are a lot of people who can talk without brains.
Yes. Yeah.
While we're here, let me just give you my quick math lesson to explain Congress. You see, zero point 0.5 times 0.5 is 0.25. So when you have a half a brain times a half a brain, you get a quarter of a brain. And Congress has 38 members. So I figure, how many brain could they possibly be dealing with?
That's a formula that might include some substances that we can't get into right now. But yes, it's now legal in Virginia. So
oh my,
yeah. Wow. Yeah. But yeah. You're. I don't know what to say to that.
What's with the silver coins? Like how does that play into stuff? Because that's something I did not understand.
Okay.
I love it, but what's the significance?
All right, that's one thing I know something about, and I tried to learn more about right as COVID went to hell a couple years ago. There is a
really
play
fast. I don't know why I assumed you would know, but I did, and it totally worked. All right, continue.
See, as I tell my students, you must have ESPN, and then they look at me. It's like, what? And then by the time they hit on the joke, it's too late. No, honestly, there was a play that came out a year after Fear the Reaper, was released, and it's called. Oh God, now I forget what it's called, but it was like 400 Suitcases, and it was about a mental hospital in upstate New York, and all that was left over from the eugenics massacre they had up there was all these suitcases that were left over, and it was basically filled with everybody's belongings. And a lot of times, what happened in these asylums, once you were deemed unfit or defective, which was, the reason why you were often put in these places, is that you were no longer human. And then it goes hand in hand with anything you had now became part of the state or whatever who was running it. So if you came in, whether you had a business or something else like that, the state can take over. If you had money or belongings or jewelry, they can take over. Or just the hospital staff there would just take it or go home with it or hide it. And nobody cared because you were not a person. You were, if you were unfit, or it didn't have to be a racial thing or a religious thing. It just be, you just don't count anymore. So nobody cared. Just like, again, with you mentioned the Jewish death cars back then, where they just collected all their belongings. Same thing happened here. And what I saw in Western State, when I was going through the research for Fear the Reaper, the same thing. You saw these walls knocked down because when they rebuilt the asylum into a hotel, they knocked down the walls because they knew they would find jewelry, they found money, and found other things in there that they stole from the inmates. So when they knocked down the wall and Hank went inside there and found all the coins, that's what they did. They just took either the patients hid their things or the hospital staff hid their things behind the walls and either forgot about it or took it home. So that's what it was. It's almost like, and I read something. It was. I know it's a long shot, but somebody mentioned the whole 30 coins. With Judas and everything else like that. Do you really want to betray your fellow man for this when you should be doing something helpful? But there's so many different weird theories about it. But again, just knowing that the fact is that once they deemed you inhuman, then everything you had is now no longer yours to take, and we can just take yours. I know in the novel there, some wife she wanted her husband's business, so she called him and said, "Hey, he's having a homosexual relationship. That's illegal, so you can lock him up now." And then she took over the business. Some other guy said, "Hey, I want his bank account, some other things." So he called him up and said, "Hey, you know what? You're no longer a person. You're defective." And then guess what? He took over anything. Anything went. It was kind of it's a kind of echo of McCarthyism and the Salem witch trials, all that stuff, but in the 20th century. So that's where it came from, and that stuff is unfortunately all too real. And they're still finding treasures. And I was wrong. It's called the Willard Suitcases. That's the name of the play. But again, this happened all around the entire country, from the 1920s all the way to the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah. Now you have people doing that with conservatorships. As far as like the elderly or deeming people unfit, mentally unfit, or for whatever reason, as far as like because of age or because they are experiencing erratic behavior or expressing erratic behavior or what's deemed as erratic behavior.
Like you get drunk, shave your head, the paparazzi chases you around, like that kind of behavior.
Yeah,
It's weird how that doesn't happen to Kanye.
Yeah, why Britney Spears and not Kanye? Come on. I don't get that. No.
It's very odd.
Yeah.
No, but I completely agree with you, Don. I'm sorry I interrupted with a joke.
No. Trust me. That goes hand in hand. So, we definitely do see this a lot more sexism, because you would have women that were put into mental institutions for any number of reasons, especially during the late Gilded Age, the early Progressive era. Women who were exhibiting anything that was deemed as non-normal behavior, they'd be put into a mental facility.
Yeah, a little side part of that. I mean, my personal stake in this. My grandmother was born in 1920, and she was told that her mother died of childbirth, and her father raised her with her aunt and everything else. And she died at a young age of 69 years old, and found out that my grandmother's mother actually died a couple of years later in an asylum, also in upstate New York. Her father had to put her away just because he didn't want to be married anymore.
Wow.
So the fact is that most people I know, either down here with asylum or now in my own family, this was commonplace. What Don was saying, it was so real. So, and it was not uncommon by any stretch of the imagination there. So, just wanted to throw it out there.
I want to throw out a side note as well, and my side note is that the place where Danvers was built was also, before that, was home to John Hawthorne, who was the judge in the Salem witch trials.
I did not know that. Wow.
I read that today in one of the history of Danvers or whichever. Well, I don't know which one I was on, but yeah. And I was like, man, like that's so set up like some horror novel I wrote, right? Like this evil dude did this, and then we built this giant building here where evil stuff happened, and
You can't make that stuff up. That's crazy. No pun intended there. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been concerned about that. I say things are crazy constantly, and I'm like, this is not the episode. James, do not say crazy talk.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Don, what else do you got in your notes over there?
Let's see. Well, here was the one thing when they started off, as far as trying to explain to Hank what was going on with this building, and saying, "Oh, it was budget cuts. That's why stuff like this happened." And I'd even written in my notes way before this, I was like, "Fucking Ronald Reagan," and then it got to
you just don't learn.
Then it got to budget cuts. It was like, oh, it was in the 1980s and they did this. And so it made me think, even though this is not a focal point of the film, but it does make you want to discuss the way in which the mentally ill, people who were seeking treatment, people who actually legitimately needed treatment for any number of issues, were thrown out on the street. And then you have places like Skid Row is a perfect example. I can't remember the name of the documentary, but it talked about how, from firsthand accounts, how people were seeking help for addiction. People were seeking help for schizophrenia, all different types of mental disorders. And I remember one of the individuals saying, like, I was getting help until Reagan, and gave this nice discussion, nice history of how state and federal government, or at least the infrastructure itself, got rid of these institutions because they cost too much money, which there are people like me who look at it and say, like, how much did we spend on the military every year? But you're going to close hospitals and facilities for people who need it. And even if they don't need it, you have some people that you've got the aspect of some of these people have this as their only stable housing that's available. So you're then throwing these people out on the streets, getting them into a situation where they could possibly become addicts again, or at least return to being addicts. Then they're not getting the treatment. They get thrown into jail, which then feeds another system. They don't get treatment for their addictions or mental illness while they're in jail. When they serve their term, they get out, and then you just have recidivism as opposed to treating these people for addiction or mental health issues. And you have a lot of people that think that this is okay because you don't see them. And there was one documentary a while ago, and this may not be the title, but I believe it was entitled "Throwaway People" or "Disposable People." And it talked about how there were people in the working poor or people in marginalized communities that had so many resources cut off that they were basically on their own on so many issues, or with respect to so many issues. But the individuals on this documentary that was about Skid Row in Los Angeles, they perfectly articulated what the issues were. And they said, we would be more than welcome to get help, but there are no facilities for us to get help. We can't get jobs because we don't have an address. We don't have a place that we're living. We can't stay in the shelters because some of the shelters are overrun, or they're run by people who actually have poor motivation as far as, like, you're only going to come here if you become a Christian, or you're only going to come here if you go to our services and things like that. They're not being genuine when it comes to helping them out. Or if you happen to be, in fact, this one individual was a transgender woman, and she was expressing, like, they don't want me there. Like, I can't go to them for help because when I get there, they immediately just treat me as if I'm trash, as if I'm something that doesn't need to be helped. And I just want someplace that's where I can stay clean, someplace where I can have a roof over my head, a place where I can get a meal. But I've been out on the street. People won't hire me. And basically, this was the same issue for a bunch of different people, no matter what their background was. It was the system abandoned them and then did not give them any options other than living on the street. So, you've got that in many cities throughout the country. No matter what the political ideology, not political ideology, the political affiliation is. You have people in red states and blue states, and red cities and blue cities that are having to deal with that. And, it just comes down to complete abandonment of people who needed the help.
Yeah, I could not have said it any better. I mean, that's perfect. Because again, the whole thing about Reaganism back there in the 80s, where did those people go? I mean, and the main thing is why it happened is with Reaganomics there, like, it wasn't making money. So,
Right.
It's not making money. Screw them. Let's kick them out. Mental health doesn't matter because, we're not going to see these people anywhere. They're just going to go into the streets, whatever, and go to Skid Row, go into the bridges. Who cares? And then what happened in Virginia this past year, I know it's probably happening all over the place. They did the same thing, and just because they said COVID reasons, but they said no, they would no longer take new patients in any of the mental hospitals around the whole state. And they said, and just for staff shortages or whatever else. They said, well, what happens to all these people who need the 30-day stay or something else? They said, sorry, you're shit out of luck here. And I've known so many people where you're supposed to get at least a 30-day minimum stay, and it's like, sorry, you know what? 2 days later, you're good. Take this prescription and go home. And mm-hmm. And again, we've gone backwards, almost back to where these asylums are out. Except that instead of an asylum, you just go out to the street. It's sad. It's really pathetic. But again, you said the military. The military, that's for them. It's money well spent. That can make money. What do you get out of mental health treatment? Nothing. That's not going to make anybody any money. So screw them. It's terrible, but that's how it is.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing they would do is they would make this argument of like, oh, these people would be better off at home, but you have families that don't have the resources to get them help. And I'm speaking from, personal experience, and then also knowing people who've gone through that. Like, they have family members that they cannot, they can't treat, and even the way some of the laws are written, they can't commit them because they have. I mean, at least get them to go get the help. In a lot of cases, they have to advocate for themselves, and in a lot of cases, these people can't advocate for themselves, let alone get an appointment with a therapist or a psychiatrist to actually be considered for receiving any help. But even if they do get the help, you have a lot of these places that, especially, if we want to stick with addiction, you have places that are completely for profit, whether they want to say they are or not. I'll see the commercials every day where there's kind of like, come to the, Whispering Winds treatment facility. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Because they're showing yoga, and they're showing paddleboard classes and CrossFit and all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, I get that is, you're getting people exercise and things like that, but how much does this cost? And everyday working folks who may need this are completely cut out from this. This is like upper middle class treatment that's going to be available. The type of stuff that you'll see in a movie, and you'll have like that token guy who happened to be like a garbage man, nothing, but as far as like a blue collar worker, like he's a garbage man, or he was a carpenter or something. And then everybody else is like this person was a lawyer. This person was a professor. And here's Mike. He used to be a pipe fitter. You have that one person that gets thrown in when it's a movie, but in real life, like, you're not seeing them there. You're seeing in those types of facilities where you have people who have addiction issues, those high end places. It's not for, as I like to put it, it's not for regular ass people.
If just now, I mean, if for even those of us who have decent benefits and everything else like that, look how hard it is to get an appointment for things, or even if you have money, you can't get in to see people, or if you can't get your prescriptions, you can't get anything else today. It's tough all around. So even though for the people who actually have all the resources, you still can't get what we need. So, I mean, for the people who are in desperate need, who are the typical people who were thrown into asylums back then, I mean, you're definitely shut out of luck. So so again, we haven't gone anywhere. We just called it different things. So, we went up to the pinnacle of it, which was not high, and then we sank right back down to where we were in 1920.
Yeah.
So.
This is the most depressing thing we've said on this show in a long time.
Oh, okay. Well, let's have some fun here.
No. I really think it needs to be said, though, and I really think that a lot of people who don't work in these industries don't understand how dire it is, and even like my wife is a psychologist, right? And it's crazy to watch like these insurance companies go, oh, you can't bill for this. You can't bill for that. You can't see this patient for this because that's not why they see you. You can't, there's all these crazy rules, and it's like people just need help. And I go back to what Don said about how much money we can drop on war. And it's just always bothered me that we are so ready to drop massive amounts on killing people, but we're never willing to drop minor amounts on helping people. And so while that was one of the most depressing things I've heard on the show in a while, I think it definitely highlights a need, and I hope more people start getting it and start voting to work on it.
Well, just because I brought everybody down, I want to lift this up a little bit with at least some humor. So staying, hopefully this will be a decent segue here. So I mean, you can't get any lower. It feels like my social life. But now, when Fear the Reaper came out, because it was about all the asylum right here in my adopted town here, Stanton. So what happened was, I mean, because again, hidden American history, because again, Americans, history, we don't do anything wrong. But when this came out, it said, oh my God, we're talking about all this horrible thing where they killed people, they tortured people, they lobotomized people, the gas chamber, all the everything else, and it was really well received by a lot of normal people in my town. However, I got death threats, but not death threats by anybody to normal, by old people. We were talking about people who were like taking out their teeth and going to play bingo. I was like, holy crap, these people are going to come after me with their canes and stab me with them. It was hysterical that the people would threaten me online on Facebook and all these old people groups and say, we're going to make sure you never sell a book. And they would, however, nobody showed up in person. And I would write back to them. I was like, what are you going to do? I mean, are you going to take your AARP card and stab me with it? I mean, what are you going to do here? And it was hysterical. And instead of being afraid of stuff, I was just laughing. I would just like, all right, let's just go. Come after me and take out your incisors and just bite me with them, whatever else. It was so friggin' funny. But again, it just tied into the whole thing as, you know what, it can't happen here. It didn't happen here. It's like those things never happen here in Virginia. It never happened. So we can't talk about it. So I'll kill you if you talk about them. But yet the mayor of the town said this is amazing. She bought a copy. I had a grand welcoming at the town library. It was just full of people, including a lot of old people who were very receptive of everything. But it was so funny that all these death threats were coming through these keyboard dustbins. So that's like that's what I referred to them as. Like, go ahead. It's like you're getting dust on your computer as you type to me while you threaten me. So keep on going. Okay, I had to lift this out of the.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to bring this out of there.
That's crazy that you were getting death threats for this, but it's also just so America. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if other countries are like that, but
no.
Like my hometown.
Well, I just like the fact that they're just so disconnected from the idea or the concept that something bad could happen in their own country.
Yeah, and this whole thing is Stanton actually ran this guy out of town once they figured out how bad it was. So it's like the town did something great about it. But and you know what? All the younger people, I mean, embraced it, and they're telling me on my ghost tours when I talk about it, they say, you know what? This is great. We're learning about this in our classes, everything else. So the upswing of this is they're starting to teach about it in high schools and in colleges. So I mean, it was a really good high note about this. So it was just the old farts who were just and getting their their granny panties in a little noose there. But I mean, anybody under the age of 60 was really supportive. Just these old people who should have been buried a couple centuries ago. I mean, it was so those were the only people. But it was hysterical, and my students and some of my readers were asking, "Does this bother you?" And it's like, no. I mean, I said every single time I want to record it just so I can sit back and laugh. But yeah, so so I had to go with something humorous there.
Ma'am, you were never going to buy this book. I don't accept cash. Oh, no, I can't take a post-dated check. But so,
no, I will not. I will not take your Golden Corral gift card. No, it's not happening.
That's just crazy to me, though, because, like you said, if the townspeople ran this dude out, you would think they would tell this as the hero tale, oh, we found this guy and we took over and we made things right. But no, let's just pretend none of it happened. And my hometown is the same way. Nothing bad has ever happened there. Sure, Charles Starkweather's buried there, but nothing bad has ever happened in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
So,
oh my God, yeah, that's awesome.
You want to talk about Nebraska? Let's talk about Mississippi.
Oh, no. You'll really piss off that family there.
I mean, seriously, there are people here who for some reason think that nothing bad ever happened. And then they'll ask stupid questions like, I don't understand. What's wrong with the flag? Come on.
How do this is a fine plantation? I got married here.
Oh, don't get me started.
You see how I'm just goading you over here?
Oh.
I'm poking the bear.
It's so much fun, though.
It's just Again, I have no idea if other countries are this way, but it's always amazing to me how Americans are so intent on this image of everything's always been fine. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think anything's ever been fine. So
yeah, and you go to over to, I mean, when we went to Dachau, I mean, to see that, and guess what? Everybody there, the whole town is trained in its history to talk about it. They own this stuff. I mean, and, they say, you know what, this is part of our history. I mean, we're not proud of it, but we own it. It's this way. We never go back to it. And so, I mean, I found that really impressive. And here it's like, well, no, there's no Trail of Tears. There's no Mississippi. There's no this. There's no that. But, yeah. Yeah. Well, at least, yeah, I'm not gonna, I'll stay out of political thing, but, yeah, especially since I work in a weird part of the state there. It's, but anyway, but I can get myself, I can have myself chased down by a lot of pickup trucks in town. So let me just put it like, yeah. So it'd be worth it though. So all I have to do is say, hey, if you can spell some of these big words, you can come after me. But no, if you can trace your family tree, if you can trace your family tree beyond 2 branches, come at me. So, but they can't. But yeah, the Jersey and me will never go away. So
there you go.
But anyway, do you mind if I brought up something just because we're going around here?
You're the guest. Do whatever you want.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to take over, but one thing
take over.
I want to get your point of your thoughts on this because because I like that both of you are really into this. This
Don,
movie.
You're going first.
Yeah, you're definitely up there. Now, since you hit on this before about having different films and asylums, and one thing I liked about this, the hospital is its own character. It is a living character, and I like that because obviously, the Overlook. Because James, you might have something to do with that later, and then maybe.
I've heard of it.
You might have heard of it, and then you have Hill House. The opening lines of Hill House. It's
man,
they talk about it being a living, breathing thing, and some of the best horror, asylum movies or books, or even the ones that are non-horror, they treat it as you alluded to before. The energy is it's a living character in the film or book. So I love that even though this is just a film. Danvers is a character in this, and I just figured whether you want to just jump off of that into another character or hit on this, whatever you want to do. But I love the fact that both of you are into this. So go nuts, Don.
Oh, I don't know where to go after. I think you said it as far as it being its own character because it's I don't know. You get a different mood depending. I'm not a lighting person. I'm not a set design person. But I noticed that it seems as though the hospital itself has a different mood based off of the light or based off of the color that's being used, or at least just the way the color is reflected on screen. And it definitely made me feel different ways about certain scenes, a little bit more anxious, a little bit more aloof at sometimes, maybe even comical here and there. But it definitely, from the beginning, it made me apprehensive because of the way that we've kind of constructed identities around these types of facilities where, they are dangerous. They're scary. Bad stuff happened here. And a lot of times we don't think about the people that were doing it. We just assign that to the hospital. Like, this is a bad place. Or, even with hospitals themselves, like, that's the place where you go to die. It's never associated, or I shouldn't say it's never. It's typically not associated with an individual. It's associated with that building, that area. Like, this is something that's bad, something that bad things are going to happen if you go there, and you may never escape it.
I would say, number one, I don't think Danvers could ever not be a character in and of itself. I would say anyone who has never seen a map of the actual Danvers State Hospital whatever it was actually called. Go look it up. No matter how big you think Danvers was, it was so much bigger than that. And it's like 40 buildings, I think, something like that. And when you see a map of the actual layout and you see how self-contained this place was, and it was purposely made to be self-contained. It was purposely made to keep people there and to not need the outside world, to cut off the outside world, to protect the outside world, right? And the architecture and just the levity of knowing what these places were immediately adds character. So then you take like the lighting like Don was talking about and the colorizations and stuff. And when I look at like these yellows that are used, I'm also not a big cinematography guy, so I'm going to fuck things up. But it's got that gross look to it. I don't have a better way to say it. I like bright white, like it becomes very sanitized and too much if you go too far. But the yellows in this accentuate the dirtiness of this place, and and that immediately makes me uncomfortable, right? Like I don't want dirty. I don't want rats. I don't want mold. I don't want whatever else is there. Then you take it to another level and you take me downstairs. And then the lights go out. Well, when I see the lights go out in this movie, I see a long hallway. But man, in my head, I'm picturing the map of Danvers and how damn big this place is. And I will assume, because I was never there, that this is not straightforward hallways. There's probably not like it was built to be a labyrinth, but I think you could get lost down there pretty damn easy, even with lights. And all of that adds character to me. And all of that accentuates what's going on with each of these actual characters and how they're influenced by that. Because they're going there and they're doing a job, but they're immediately feeling the same things that the patients felt. They're cut off and they're alone. And they're with people, but they don't like these people. They didn't choose to hang out with these people. They work with these people. No one chooses to hang out with the guy that's banging your ex-girlfriend or ex-wife or whatever, right? Like, it's just that simple. And then none of these people seem to get along. Like, they sit and they chat because that's who's here. And that's very reflective of what I saw with patients. Patients weren't there with their friends. They were there with the only people that they have around. And so maybe it's my experience adding to it, but all of that works to build character to me and to add the environment as a character as well. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, you hit on that again really well. I mean, again, we're stuck with, it's kind of like with our screwed up families. We don't get to choose our families. We don't get to choose our inmates. And well, sometimes it's the same damn thing. I mean, I can count with my family how many psychoses are around within just my new little, maybe 10 family members, about 20 different neuroses there. But again, you're stuck with that movie where they're stuck with there, and you find out everything that's wrong with them is just coming out because you're in such close quarters. I mean, I don't think they could have set it up better. Like here, one guy, he's with, Phil's former girlfriend, and then you have somebody who's the relative who's screwed up, and then all these people who are just, you see all the cracks that they hide when they're in the real world. It just illuminated under those horrible lights. And so I think it just, the place there just further breaks them. Just by being there, it's like, even without the asbestos and the supernatural, I mean, that's where it's one of those key things there. I keep on going back to it. Is it supernatural or is it not? I mean, because, just a place like that can actually break you into many pieces. You don't, do I think it is supernatural? I think there's a touch of it. I mean, but I don't think you need it to become a true horror movie. Because again, the claustrophobia, I mean, that's my major phobia there. Is it just can just snuff out any type of sanity within you, and especially when you're around people you can't stand, it just amplifies everything. But again, with the one thing I keep on going back to is when they talk to when they listen to all the sessions, and then they're talking to all the characters that are inside Mary, and you have Billy and Princess and eventually Simon, and they say, "Where do you live?" And it's like, "Well, I live in the eyes because I see everything. Princess, I live in the tongue because I like to say everything." And then, of course, we get to Simon. It's like, "I live in the weak and the wounded," the key line there. And of course, you're in every one of those characters is weak and wounded. It just sets it up perfectly. So it fits so damn well. But again, would they have cracked if they weren't there? And I think, and then that's one of the my key questions about the movie.
Well, and even Mike, with going and listening to these things, that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the only other people you're given, right? Like, he doesn't want to hang out with these guys. He finds this thing that he keeps for himself. He doesn't share it with anyone. And he goes and he does something else. He doesn't want to be involved with what they're doing, and he finds time alone to find the only other sort of human contact that he can get. And I find that interesting because he doesn't seem like, I don't mean that he's on a higher level because he was a lawyer or wants to go be a lawyer or that kind of stuff, but he just doesn't fit with the others as well. Like, he feels like he's just coasting and he's just there, so I like that he's the one that isolates.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because again, he's they first bring it up that he might be bigger than everybody else, but he's not. I mean, he dropped out of law school. I mean, and so he's just on the same level with everybody else, but he just wanted the isolation, and he needed some kind of connection. I mean, everybody needed a connection in that film, and that was his connection, was to Mary and those tapes. But we all, it just shows that everybody needs something, and his isolation, they're kind of fit. And there was a really weird story that I tell on our ghost tour here. Recently, in the last 20 years, there was somebody from a university who they were tasked with, your wife's a psychologist. Some of the worst jobs we have are as interns. They actually had to go around Western State Hospital and collect all the old files because, HIPAA be damned. Once you were in Western State or any of these asylums,
oh, man,
you were no longer a person. So those files were left just like they were in the movie. So that's not fiction. Those tapes were left over. Those files were left over. You walk around these places, you can see them on the ground. And this poor guy who was doing this stuff. It can't be substantiated 100%, but we have heard about it. So it is enough that he was addicted to it, just like Mike was, and he wound up. They found him dead in the room. Whether he took his own life or whether something else happened, we don't know. But and when I watch this now, I think of that. But again, it's finding those tapes is not fiction. That is real stuff.
When I worked at the state hospital in Arizona, we had like the unit that I worked on, and then upstairs there was a unit that used to be open but no longer was. And sometimes we'd go hang out there because it was empty and you could get away, right? Only it wasn't empty. Like, literally, the dry erase board still had, like, that day's schedule, whatever the last day was, that day's schedule. And, like, there were still patient charts, and there were still, like just everything was still there. There was stuff in people's rooms. And it was the weirdest thing because it was like, what happened here? Like, why are there still clothes in somebody's room? Like, if you moved them to another place, they should have gotten their clothes. So then it's like, are these someone else's clothes? Are these abandoned clothes and somebody threw them in this room? I don't know. But I've come back to it repeatedly in my mind since lockdown started, or, supposed lockdown started. And I think about like how some offices are that way. Like, we just stopped going to them. And it's like maybe somebody's coffee mug is still sitting on their desk 2 years later or whatever, like, I don't know. It's just like, what happened that day? And like, what would I feel if I walked into like an office that was like that now,
Yeah. And it's good timing that you said that because what is tomorrow? It's March 13th. There'll be exactly 2 years to when all the stuff started. So,
oh, man.
Yeah. So this is the weekend exactly 2 years ago when I remember sitting in my 7th period class, and all of a sudden we got the email from the governor say, okay, everything's canceled for the rest of the year, done. So again, and then I came back that fall, and my coffee mug was left on my desk. Everything else was left. Everything. So everything. So I can only imagine for people who never went back.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, so all these things on these lives that were left there. I mean, these suitcases that were found on the grounds with all their stuff and on top of graves, everything here. I mean, so a lot of people will look at this and say, this is just a horror movie. And like, no, it's like all this stuff was it happened, and there are parts of the world that it's still happening, and it's still happening here in this country, but it's just under a more shiny, happier, more less publicized guys here. Like, it's nothing new, but I just love that. I mean, that you can people who watch this movie, they say, you know what, it's so convenient. You just walk in there and these tapes are right there. It's like, go into one of these places, go urban exploring and see this for yourself. It is chilling to see this. I mean, if you guys, obviously you guys both notice.
But if you do go into those places, please don't blame our podcast when you talk to the police. Thank you.
And please don't open anything, because that was my first sign when he opened that box. I'm like, son of a bitch. Now it's going to start.
I don't advocate anything, but but many of these places, they don't. I mean, they don't police these areas or anything else. I mean, although the one asylum in our town, if you do go onto the premises, it is an overnight stay in Stanton Police Department, so they do police that area. But the main place where the hospital is, I mean, they don't care what the hell you do. So either you get locked up, or it's like, hey, come in and get a coffee in the bar afterwards. So
you're saying that if I come visit, I can head over here and then save myself a hotel stay, and
yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can stay in a nice boutique hotel, and it's fun. You can actually look up the site. It's called the Blackburn Inn. The doors on the hotel rooms are actually the asylum doors. They never change the doors. All they do is paint.
Amazing.
They only painted over the little sliding things where they used to pass in, say hi to them. And we have a lot of people on our ghost tours who come there and say, are those doors? I say, yes, they're asylum doors. So just keep on going. So yes. So you're welcome here anytime. And in the hotel staff, they own this stuff, and they'll say, you know what? Just like any other place, like, go check around. And you walk right out the back door of your hotel room into some of the forbidden buildings there and check things out. And say, hey, go see the circular building with no doors and windows. Go figure out what that is. But they will not allow my novel to be on the campus there of the hotel, everything else like that. However, they will tell you the whole story there, and let you walk around into the gas chamber and see the graveyard with all the tombstones that have no names and no numbers on them. You have 4,000 tombstones there with no names and no numbers on them, just blank tombstones. So it's okay for you to see that, but God forbid you see my book there. But it's so surreal. So this is it's a great parallel between this. I mean, that living that near a few minutes away and seeing this movie over and over again. So it just keeps on, jamming into my psyche. This is real. This is the movie. But I can shut this off. But I walk down the street and I see it living. So it's kind of cool.
So Don, I don't know about you, but what I just heard is that when we're done with Spirited Giving at the Stanley Hotel, we have a new place that we can hold the next one.
That's James, I don't know how to break this to you, but no.
Oh, somebody's a party pooper. Okay.
So you're telling me there's a chance. Got
it. In hell.
Did I mention that I'm actually running a contest for my novel that every time we get to a certain amount of reviews, I'm actually giving away a one-night stay at this hotel. So all you got to do, because how writers, reviews are like kind of like like gold or adamantium or titanium to them. So it's like every time I get to 100 reviews for something, I give away a night stay there. So you can actually be the winner of that one night stay. So you don't have to you don't have to charge yourself anything. So
beautiful.
Just saying. I mean, you could be that potentially a lucky winner there, and it wouldn't cost you anything. So
there you go.
So yeah, it's free. Free is affordable to most people. So I'm sorry, I had to put some fuel in the fire there.
I love it.
That's what I do.
Mine away.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
What do you have left in your notes, Don?
I am good because I mentioned the one things I definitely wanted to hit, and the two of you already hit the other ones that I was going to bring up. But yeah, I'm good. I've got my movie recommendations.
All right, cool. David, do you have more in your notes?
Just the one last thing I wanted to say. I mean, it just my thoughts on the very end of again, that last line. I live in the weak and the wounded. I think. I mean, I waver back and forth every single time when I think it was. Is it supernatural or is it not? And today I thought it was. Last time I thought it wasn't. And I absolutely loved that about this movie because every single time I watch it, I think something different, and it's fun for me to play into that and just to be unsure of that. I love that, and again, it taps into the whole mental illness thing and the energy there and everything else. Is the mental energy real? Is it supernatural? Is it just, or is it Joe Lansdale actually called it super normal, things we just don't understand yet? So I just want to close on that because again, it's one of those things you don't know, and it's like, you know, your opinion can waver every single time you encounter something like this. So that's what I find the most fascinating thing about this. I think it's a good way to end it. Is I don't know, and I like not knowing. So
I love it. I think I do the same thing. Some days I can make the argument one way, and some days the other. So this is one movie where I feel like they gave us enough of both that they're both viable and they're both good endings. So whichever one works for you, go with it, you know?
Exactly.
The one thing that I want to add, are either of you aware of the burnt ziti murder?
No.
No. If we're not past the time, I believe we can go back into that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I live for puns, so we just added 10 more hours to this.
I'm giving a lesson on dad jokes next week in my psychology class. I have to do it. So, sorry.
I love it. So Brad Anderson, when he was working on this, he drove by Danvers all the time, right? And that's why it was always in his head and why he wanted to make this. I don't know if you guys are aware, but he was making mostly romantic comedies before this.
No.
Not a joke. That's true. And this got in his head and he had to crank out this film, right? But here's the other piece of that. August 29th, 1995, this insurance executive came home. His wife had burnt a pan of ziti, and it caused him to snap. He strangled his wife, carries her to the backyard, and dissected her body with a rock. I'm kind of reading this and kind of summarizing. With a rock, he smashed her face in, and then he placed her heart and her lungs on a stake in the backyard. This guy also had a 4-month-old baby, and he did not kill the child. He took the child with him, but this is Boston. So I feel like this had to play in, given the time, 1995. This is too on point with this film, right? Mm-hmm. And but his defense is the most amazing part of this story to me. He claims that he thought she was an alien, and that's why he put her heart and lungs out there, so that kind of like a warning to the other aliens.
Oh,
holy shit. Right? Holy shit. So go look up the burnt ziti murder, singular, thank God. But yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
He tried to go insanity defense and it was shot down. He got a life sentence without the possibility of parole. But yeah, this reading this today, I know that the next time I watch Session 9 is going to hit even harder, right? Like, but But that scene where they show in quotation marks him killing the family and the dog, so well done. We don't need to see that shit. It's so much worse to me that they don't show it. When the dog's barking stops, holy shit. And then the baby, and I'm just like, nope, stop. My God.
Yeah, and thankfully they did stop. I mean, and you're right. I mean, but somebody, I forget which horror writer said that. It was things are so much more horrific if you don't explain it or if you don't show it, and because our imaginations can fill things, fill in the blanks so much worse than any special effects or other things can. So yeah, that's what made that whole scene so freaking horrific, and you just nailed it. But thankfully, I'm just glad that you actually filled in the blank with ziti. So now every time I get to that scene, I can think ziti, and I can get hungry instead of being scared. So that's perfect.
I call that the Anakin Skywalker moment, because when he kills the Padawans, they don't show it, right? And I've always been like, that's so much worse to me. If you would have shown it, like, my mind goes way further and way crazier. So while I understand why they don't, man, stuff like that gets to me more than if you show it to me. All right. So
if they showed it, it might have been comical at this point. Like, there would have been so many memes.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
I mean, we already have the memes, right? But could you imagine if they had done that as far as adding that to the canon of, like, this is exactly how he did it?
It would just be a meme that says, like, me teaching freshmen English. You know? Okay, maybe not. But all right, let's move this to movie recs. So this is the part where you get to tell us movies that people should watch if they enjoyed this. So David, would you like to go first?
Sure. You guys probably have better ones than I do. Just to go, I tried to go differently for here, because again, I'm sure there's so many good ones here. But again, Stonehurst Asylum was one, because I had Kate Beckinsale, so I have to mention that. And then there's one called The Ward that I just saw recently. That's another good one. I like that a lot. It's and there was one more. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Oh, forget it. But again, Parasomnia, that was one. And there was one final one I want to make sure I did not forget about, and I am, and it's killing me. Let's see. Scrolling through my last bit of notes here. Screw it. Unsane. It's not beautiful. Yeah. But that was one I want to make sure I didn't forget, because trying to go for ones that people probably haven't heard of, because again, Shutter Island, one of my favorite movies of all time. Everybody knows that one. But again, but I'm gonna try to find the ones that people haven't heard of.
I love that.
Those, they might not be the best movies, but I mean, they're if you're into Asylum movies, I think they're well worth a shot.
All right, Don, I have two.
Okay.
And I added the second one while we've been talking today.
Oh.
So my double feature is Identity. Because
you bastard.
I feel like that really pulls into what's happening here and some of the stuff David talked about. If you've seen it, go check out our episode with Laurel Hightower and Sandra Rutten talking about it. Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, my other one, and this came from our conversation about buildings as characters. Mm-hmm. And one of the buildings that I want to go to most is the Ohio prison that is Shawshank. So Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank is such a character in itself for me. Like, just the huge walls when he's walking in, looking up at the sky for the last time, and just everything about the building itself plays so heavily in that film. And of course, Shawshank is my favorite movie of all time, so I got to throw it in there. All right, Don, you're up.
Okay. All right, so that takes a couple of mine. So since you took Identity, I'm going to go ahead and start with Shutter Island. 13 Ghosts, Gothica, Dead Silence, Jacob's Ladder, The Empty Man, 1408, It Comes at Night, High Tension, Bringing Out the Dead, Orfanato, In the Mouth of Madness, House on Haunted Hill, Stir of Echoes, The Haunting, The Visit, and The Strangers.
Nice.
That's really nice. I love both those lists. Both of you hit two of my favorite movies of all time, Identity and Shutter Island. So thank you. Perfect movies. Oh yeah, those are two perfect movies to me.
That's how I feel about Shawshank. Like, I never get sick of it. I'm always just immediately engrossed as soon as it's on. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And Identity is just fucking fantastic as well. So yeah.
Yeah, Shawshank is in its own world. I can't even compare it to any other movie we just talked about. That's one of probably the top 10 movies of all time for me of any genre. So yeah, you got that. So yeah, but I can't even compare that to what we just talked about.
So I often jokingly say that the best thing Stephen King ever made was Joe Hill, because I love pissing people off with that line. But it's Shawshank, and now you have it on a recording. You can prove I said it. So,
oh, hey.
Plus, I've heard that line about 20 times.
At least.
It's so great to watch people's faces when I say it, though.
But you're not wrong. Yeah. I actually went to the movies once with Joe Hill when I lived up in right on the border of Massachusetts. Like, a whole bunch of us used to hang out together. Chris Golden, John McElveen, a whole bunch of other people. And I remember he only came once, and we went to the movie, and everybody turned to him and was like, "Is Dad coming? Is Dad coming? Is Dad coming?"
Oh my God!
And it took like 4 or 5 times for him to just sling a whole bunch of F-bombs together, but it was funny. But he's a cool guy, with the curse of having the look exactly like his dad. But poor soul.
Such is life.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's bring this back to you. Is there social media links you want to share and all that good stuff for certain alleys people can find you in and follow you there? However it works.
Yeah, I mean, on Facebook, you can find me under David Sims. On their Instagram, I do a lot of weird things under D Sims Muse, because my muse is a wild bitch. My website, which is also called davidsimsmuse.com, and I try to stay up at Twitter because I get in trouble there. I try to be good. I've only had one account deactivated so far, but I count that as a badge of honor. So no, but under those 3 things, I mean, that's where I contact a lot of my fans. All 3 of them. So we're good. And hopefully I'm going to meet a whole lot more people at the upcoming conferences, StokerCon and AuthorCon, and it's for Scared to Care, Thriller Fest if I get there this year, and a few others. So I really am dying to see everybody in person again finally this year.
Yes, me too. I can't wait. All right. So I guess that wraps it up for another week. Thank you for coming over here and chatting about this with us. I had a great time, and I hope you did as well.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be a part of this, and I had a ball. This was easily the highlight of my week, but then again, I'm a teacher, so yeah. No, but seriously, this is so much fun, and I do love teaching. My students know I love them so much. So if this can be the highlight of my week, it's a big thing. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for being here.
All right. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm going, who am I again? Why am I here?
What are you doing here?
I just need to go get my grippy socks. I'll be good.
And he'll be wearing them next week here at thenecronoma.com.
And only the grippy socks.
I'm leaving that in.
That's why I said it.
I know.